Hey, we're at it again, your favorite band of misfits and scientists and woodworkers and creatives all meshing together to take on an important topic. This is Woodworking is Bullshit. I'm your host, Paul Jasper, woodworker at night, scientist by day, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, Eric Curtis, fine furniture maker and content creator, and in the third chair tonight, someone who you know already, Jack Thomas, learning designer and former snooty college art professor with the pinky out right now.
The former is definitely placed on the college professor, not the snooty, right?
Yeah.
As she sips from a goblet, highly ornamented.
She's snooty as fuck.
Just for you guys.
SAF.
But also one of the best goddamn voices in podcasting. No?
Aw, thank you.
Silky smooth.
Jack, give us that buttery voice today.
I mean, just tell me what you want to say. What do you want me to say?
Oh my God.
Save it for the Patreon feed. Come on. Don't give
that's
that
a good
away.
idea.
I know.
It's getting hot in here. Is that the whiskey or is that the
This
Yes.
only Jacks.
only Jack's? I see a new pivot in the career path.
Look, we've all thought about selling feet pics lately, so no judgment.
In this economy?
In this economy?
All right. Well, with that intro, we're going to start with today's question. This is something, I think this came up just through a naturally occurring chat between the three of us, right? On Instagram. We were just chatting about something.
Yeah, you sent an Instagram reel.
Was it Jack who sent it?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, where did all the color go? And I think it was referencing like the loss of vivid color use.
Oh, I thought it was referencing that Paula Cole song.
Oh, I don't know that song.
all the color go?
Oh, who's got the good voice now? No, it was a screenshot from that Napoleon movie with Joaquin Phoenix, and it's like, Jesus, why have all the movies and TV shows I've seen lately been so grayed out?
Yeah.
Like they're dark and gray.
All the colors are muted, like faded, pale versions. And so that got us thinking about, well, not only has color sort of gone away, but ornamentation, the use of ornamentation has gone away in the last century. And so we thought, you know what? These are really interesting questions because as artists, we think about how much to use color, how much to use ornamentation. Is it in? Is it out? How does it make us feel? What's the point of it? And so all of these questions around the use of color and ornamentation. And this is not like some snooty pie in the sky issue. Like color has direct links to our emotions and our reactions. And ornamentation does too. Like you walk in some of these like cathedrals, like when I walked into the cathedral, the Duomo in Siena, there was so much ornamentation. I felt literally overwhelmed. So our question for today's episode is, where has all the ornamentation and color gone and why? Like, why did it fall out of fashion? Is it making a comeback? And can we explain what we've seen? So we could start paying homage to Mary by defining ornamentation. Mary, this is for you, dear. Ornamentation is the elaboration of objects simply for the sake of visual pleasure. The point is to bring delight and happiness to those who see it and experience it. That is the point. Bringing delight to the viewer.
Did you? This may be an offensive question to you, buddy, and a preemptive apology.
Uh-oh.
That sounds a little bit like a ChatGPT definition. No? That's Webster's? Are you a Merriam guy?
I think I got this from a series of different essays in the early 1900s. That's how it's defined in a few essays.
Can you repeat it for me one more time? Because it sounded so computery that almost distracted me.
Oh my God, you're the worst. The elaboration of objects for the sake of visual pleasure. Period.
I mean, that sounds about right to me.
Now, I elaborated on it by saying the point, I wanted to put emphasis on it by saying the point of it is to bring delight and happiness to those who see it and experience it. Like that,
sure.
It doesn't have other purposes other than delighting humans.
So, first of all, where did all the color go is such a good question. And I know the history of furniture. I know the evolution of, action, reaction, ornamentation, simplification, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I'm not a smart enough man to know about how that applies to the two-dimensional arts. So Jack, I'm wondering, when we say ornamentation and we're talking about art history, I assume they're the same movements, right? Of highly ornamented, and then it gets a little bit. Maybe not, but I guess I'm wondering what ornamentation looks like in a painting, because when I hear ornamentation specifically, I think of that fancy little goblet you were just sipping out of, right? Like gold, vines, leaves, the acanthus leaf, carving, all jewels, all of those kinds of things. Versus in a painting, I can't quite visualize what ornamentation would look like.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there's this phrase, I can't remember who said this, but it hit me really hard. Somebody said that music is what we use to decorate time, and art is what we use to decorate space. And
fuck, that's good.
It's really good, right?
I remember that. That's very good.
Can't remember who said it, but it was really good. So it's hard to say, because to an extent, all of art, at least in my opinion, is ornamentation to begin with. I know that a lot of conceptual artists are, rolling in their graves and also looking me up to dox me right now. But it's true. It's true. It is a decoration of space for pleasure, for meaning, for conversation. But all of the movements of art history regarding how minimalist they are, how maximalist they are, track really closely with those same movements in furniture and architecture. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So nobody was spared from these strong currents of culture and preference.
No.
It inserted itself in every form of art.
That's not entirely surprising, right? If art is just a vehicle for reflection, self-reflection, broader cultural reflection, and the culture is headed in one direction, then all forms of art are going to follow those trends, roughly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, artists, whether they like it or not, are basically cultural historians in a visual fashion.
Oh.
The zeitgeist,
that's good.
It's true, though. It's true. I mean,
can you say that again? Sorry, seriously.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I've been drinking, so I don't know if I can repeat it exactly. But all artists are cultural historians, whether they like it or cultural historians within visual culture, whether they like it or not.
In what way? So are you suggesting that they are documenting history?
Yes.
Or that they are not even intention? They're not documenting the history that has passed them by, but they are documenting their moment in time.
And they don't even realize
people can look back on it in the future.
Exactly.
And they understand where the zeitgeist
is. But they don't realize they're doing it. They don't always realize they're doing it. Now, somebody like a photographer, like a documentary photographer, knows that, is overtly doing that thing on purpose. But if you think about how people respond to the zeitgeist of a moment, right? Even modernism, in the wake of World War II, right? It influenced furniture, it influenced architecture, it influenced art. And people were responding to this great output of industrial war material and the abundance of manufacturing in the post-World War II era in the United States. It's all about that zeitgeist. And we are swept up in it, whether we like it or not, whether you're an architect, whether you're an artist, whether you're a furniture maker, it doesn't matter. You're both responding to it and you're leading the charge at the same time.
Oh my God. How many deep thinking points is Jack going to bring us this episode? Because that's already two.
Buckle the fuck up.
It depends on how much more I drink. We'll see.
All right. So maybe we could start at the question of, and this episode is both about ornamentation and color. And what we're going to do is kind of weave between them back and forth, right? Because I think they're largely related in many ways. For thousands of years, ornamentation was sort of the norm. Ornamentation was where it was. That's where it was at until the last 100 years or 150 years. So you have 2,000 years of ornamentation being the sort of the de facto norm of what made something special. And only in the last 150 years did it become vehemently avoided. And I guess the question is why. So I did some research. Jack did some reading. Eric said, I'm just going to react to it and ask a lot
That's
of
what I do. That's what I do.
questions. No, I'm just messing, Eric.
That's what I do best.
No, so we did some reading as to like, what are the reasons that ornamentation lost its popularity in the last 100 years? And here's like the top 5 reasons. Number 1, historically, ornamentation was a sign of wealth. Ornamentation is difficult. It takes huge number of hours in craftsmanship and learned craftsmanship, like years of study. Carvers, Eric, like you were saying, like carving, whether it's in stone or wood directly. So the wealthy who could afford those artisans would flaunt ornamentation in their house, in their clothing, textiles, as a way to show I'm special and you're not.
So that brings up my first question, because as you're saying that we've lost the desire for ornamentation, or it's lost its popularity over the last, call it 100 years.
Yeah, let's say.
Artifacts, given the nature that they're physical and they decay over time, have a recency bias that we can't deny. And objects that will be preserved are more likely to be the objects that were owned or commissioned and preserved by wealthy folks in the past. Mm-hmm. So are we living in a moment, or are we having a discussion where we're really seeing the degradation of ornamentation, or is it just that in another 1,000 years, all of the things that are unornamented from our time are going to be seen as plain, and the things that are highly valued are going to be Jack's Little Goblet? Like, is there a bias there? Because we just have more shit now from the last 100 years that we can look at and go, look at all the things that exist that are unornamented. Whereas, a vase that's 4,000 years old, if it's a plain vase, it's less likely to get preserved in a museum.
That's an interesting point. I don't know the answer.
That is really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
This is why I wing it, bitches. Let's go.
Eric's already got us off track.
No. This is totally on track. And so here's my question. What we preserve and what ergo gives us that recency bias. And yes, I did just use the word ergo because I've been drinking. What we preserve is what we deem to be valuable, and what's deemed culturally valuable is generally, unfortunately, what wealthy people deem to be culturally valuable. So now, with wealthy people, like minimalism, right, is think about the Eames chair, right, something like that. That's a sign of wealth, right? So that's what's going to be preserved? ? But if the tables were turned, if, gilded frames of Hudson River Valley, landscape paintings were what we still valued, that's what would be preserved.
I guess it's the preservation of whether it's highly ornamented or not, being the preference of the wealthy, is going to go in phases. So I guess what is represented in museums is going to go in similar phases.
Well, and what ends up in museums is really the dictate of the wealthy. Mm-hmm. It's not dictated by us as people. It's by the donors who contribute to museums and the rich curators that run them.
And not for nothing, the political entity that is a museum or a gallery, et cetera, people who donate objects to those entities want to seem, this is gross generalization, so forgive me if you are a wealthy person who's not a dick, but generally speaking, when they donate those objects, they want to donate objects of value so that they feel like they're contributing. And our innate bias is to assume that a more highly ornamented object has a higher value. The only reason that an Eames chair, sure, again, I'm speaking in gross generalities, but the only reason that we think an Eames chair has value is because the Eameses have a name. In 100 years, if nobody knows who the Eameses are anymore, then they're not going to have any value. And somebody's going to look at that chair and they go, well, it's a fucking chair. Like, who gives a shit? Why does it matter? Whereas if a highly ornamented chair happens to be preserved in somebody's attic for 200 years, somebody stumbles across it and they go, well, this might be something valuable. There's a bias
Eric,
there.
Are you saying the bias comes from the ornamentation itself, or it's the timing?
I think we have an innate bias toward beauty being a valuable thing. And I think ornamentation leans towards that. Yeah, and so when people donate to, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but again, we know how I do. When people donate to a museum, part of the donation is invariably that they want to feel like they're donating something of value.
Okay.
And if you have two objects next to each other that are the same, but one is ornamented, they might feel biased towards donating the ornamented object.
So not only is the historical record biased, but what people contribute is biased.
I think so, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, this is more a study on like why museum collections are what they are.
Sure, but I think that's part of it. If we're going to talk about why ornamentation has gone away, we have to look at what we're basing the contrast about.
Let's go back to why, because you brought up why is it going away. So if the wealthy always valued ornamentation because it was unattainable for the working class person, well, then came the Industrial Revolution, right? And now ornamentation could be mass produced, and the value immediately dropped of ornamentation. If Jack wrote a great note in our outline today, and the value is lost to the wealthy class in part because mass production allowed the kitschifcation of objects once considered art and craft only attainable by the wealthy. Once the working class can afford it, it becomes gauche, it is not sought after, and therefore ornamentation tanked. So the Industrial Revolution is really what brought upon the loss of value. Like that very much correlated with the loss of value of ornamentation. On top of that, in the early 1900s, there were a couple, I guess, other influences happening. So you had, for example, a few people saying that there was a purity or morality component around ornamentation. For Eric, you remember our episode about the Shakers?
Yep.
They believed ornamentation was sin, period, and that's why Shaker furniture is like devoid of almost all ornamentation. Not only that, but there was an essay written, and this borders on like purity, morality, but also a fad cultural perspective. In 1908, there was this famous essay written by Austrian architect Adolf Loos, who called his essay "Ornamentation and Crime." And he was so viscerally against ornamentation. And I want to read for you the major points of his essay, and I want your reaction to each one of them. All right. And this falls under the subject of like the fad or like cultural tide is turning against ornamentation through essays written by influential key opinion leaders, right? Like Adolf Loos. So here's the major points of his essay, and I want your reaction to them. Ornamentation is a primitive instinct. So he basically says, decoration is like primitive. Like he talks about the Papuans of New Guinea, like tattooing their faces and children drawing on themselves with like ornamentation as if it's like some primitive garbage, and that us in the modern society are better than that.
Oh, see, that's an innate fucking bias that I agree
bias
with him. I agree with him 100% that it is innate that we have that instinct to decorate. And I think when we care about something, when we find passion in something, we want to make it more beautiful. But then to equate that to these people aren't white and they were decorating, so we're above that is like that's some fucking. When was this asshole around?
1908.
Yeah, fuck this guy. Fuck this guy straight in the asshole.
All right, here's the next thing he said, Eric. He said that modern individuals who engage in excessive decorations, such as tattooing, are not only criminals, but degenerates.
$20 says this guy like went to orgy parties. Like there's something about this guy. He had to balance out his need for excess in some way. There was something he was doing. And now he's like, people who ornament highly suck.
Look, that is so... Okay, that's incredibly biased. I mean, I'm also a very tattooed person, but that's neither here nor there. The body is a temple, so why not fucking decorate it? We've been doing it since the beginning of time. Come on.
Honestly.
All right, next up. I have no tattoos, and I know Eric and Jack both have a lot of tattoos, so I'm the only non-degenerate in this conversation.
That is not true.
Next up is that it's economically wasteful. Ornamentation leads to unnecessary labor, lower wages, and rapid product obsolescence, making it economically inefficient.
Sure. Let me know how efficient your workers are when they're fucking depressed all goddamn day long because you suck as a human being. Get the fuck out of here with that argument.
Absolutely. Okay, so check this. With the advent of like mass manufacturing, people stopped making whole things. We started to make pieces of things as human beings. And consequently, a lot of us stopped being whole people or feeling like whole people. There's a lot to unpack there about
That's a whole episode.
That's a
right
whole
there.
episode. Like when you make your labor fractional, your creativity fractional, how can you expect to become anything but a fractional human being?
Jack, that's the third one. That's fucking tight.
That's a whole other episode, though. You're right.
That is. We're going to run that back. I'm putting that on the queue.
I love that. Okay, next up. Lou says that this one's really, to me, crazy. Lack of ornamentation signifies cultural... So minimalism now. Minimalism signifies cultural and spiritual refinement. Modern individuals express creativity in higher arts, such as Beethoven's music, rather than decorative design. And I'm like, wait a minute.
Hold the fucking phone. He's cool with Beethoven, but he's not cool with visual ornamentation.
Yeah, I'm like,
this guy's a fucking hypocrite.
If you could rank Beethoven's music on minimal or ornamented, it would be severely ornamented.
Severely.
Also, there's a difference between minimalism and like asceticism. You know, there's like because minimalism, there's still ornamentation in minimalism, but if we're gonna marry a bitch, by its definition, its ornamentation is minimal, but it's not non-existent. And to just outright deny any ornamentation or pleasure, you're just it's just masochism. It's self-harm.
I mean, this is a good point. Like, look at it. Okay, if you look at an Eames chair, right? It has, what would you call it? Tufting, you know, like the little buttons that hold things in place.
It didn't have to.
Yeah, it didn't have to. Could have been just a flat ass piece of leather, right? But it's not aesthetic.
Yeah, you look at shaker furniture again. It's minimalism.
There's some ornamentation.
Anytime you look at a fucking shaker cabinet, you know what those buttons are doing? They're contrasting the rest of the fucking cabinet face, right? So often you see those with like a walnut cabinet or a walnut pole on a pine drawer front, or you see a little bit, just like a little touch, like a little texture on one side of the thing. That's ornamentation, but it's done minimally.
So it's a sliding scale. His last point is that he made a call in the early 1900s to all of his architect friends and all of society, a call for simplicity. He champions minimalism as the future of society, as the future of design, urging artists to focus on functional, meaningful creativity rather than ornamentation. So you can see with these kinds of essays hitting the main culture, you know, and people talking about it, and this kind of ideology like sinking into the masses, you can see why, like, well, the industrialization of ornamentation, making it less valuable to the haves versus the have-nots. You can see there's essays being written against it from a purity sense, from an economic sense. It's wasteful. We got to streamline society.
What does functional creativity mean?
I know, Eric, but you could just see like there's like a tsunami of I'm just trying to like piece it all together.
Sure.
It seems like there was just in the early 1900s there seemed to be this tsunami of influence against ornamentation, which had been the norm for 2,000 years.
But
and so we started a century of minimalism.
So we are talking about an era. I don't disagree with anything you just said. I think the Industrial Revolution has a huge impact on this. I think your point earlier about ornamentation no longer having value is an excellent point. Like I always come back, you know, the Sneetches by Dr. Seuss, you know, that story, right? Like it's that. Once everybody has a star on their belly, what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
And so like you have this idea, so it's this real tense moment in time where for the first time in human history, everybody can have everything. Like everything is available. This new horizon is available.
Good point.
And I think they were really contending with the reality of if everybody has everything, nothing has value, nothing has meaning. And so like maybe this functional creativity thing is like Henry Ford saying anybody can have any color of Model T they want as long as it's black, right? Like you all get the same fucking thing, but be grateful for it because this is the first time in history that everybody can afford a fucking car.
So Eric, are we at a point right now where you can have ornamentation, you can have minimalism, like the masses, right? You can buy ornamented shit, you can buy minimal shit, you can make your house look classic, you can make your house look modern minimal.
But it's a facsimile.
It is
not the real thing.
That's true.
That's an interesting point.
Well, it's the real thing, but it's not the original thing.
Well,
I
suppose
you can have there are people who build a McMansion and put PVC Doric columns on the front.
Yeah, they're house poor.
They're house poor.
They can't afford to furnish it.
But some people would say they're taste poor as well.
Well, sure.
I mean, and they're right. They are.
I wouldn't disagree.
No offense to anybody that has total offense. Actually, if you have PVC Doric columns.
Please be offended.
But that's it. So the pendulum swings back and forth, right? It's like as soon as something can be mass manufactured and everyone can afford it, then everybody tries to afford it and they get it. But then when they get it and it's available to the masses, rich people are like, oh, now that, that's gauche. Doric columns are gauche now.
Dog.
It's the sneeches.
That's the whole thing right there.
1,000%. Yeah.
Once everybody can do it, it's no longer valuable. And so we move away from it.
Yep. Okay. So now Eric, I love what you said. We're at a time now where everything's available.
Yeah. But
so where do the rich people go next?
Well, so to Jack's point, like it's a facsimile of the thing.
Okay.
Right? So everybody can have it. Totally. And so I don't think it's dissimilar from what it was 100 years ago, because you can mass produce, anything. Literally, you can 3D print anything you want. We're actively 3D printing actual meat, like at this point, right? Like science is fucking wild. So nothing is off the table. So I don't know where it goes, but I think we're living in a moment now, which is different from the moment 100 years ago.
It is.
Push back on me if you disagree with this.
No,
but
it is.
I think where it's different is we have grown up with everything. And so we are now for the first time developing kind of, I don't want to call it taste because I don't think it is taste, but there's a sense, like an instinct that we have that senses the difference between manufactured ornamentation and real value ornamentation, right?
Oh.
Like you can, and like, now maybe this is a biased point because all three of us are skilled craftspeople in our fields, but you can, without even thinking about it, spot a CNC'd carving versus a handmade carving. You can spot a machined, block print versus something that's been done by hand. Even if both of those block prints are quote unquote produced, they're multiples, but you can sense a difference.
Yeah.
And that immediately drops its value once there's no skill involved.
Eric,
but to whom does it drop the value?
Well, that's the question. Somebody who can identify, because if I make a thing and I'm the only one making it and it's not been mass produced, like I've had clients say, I don't want you to reproduce this piece.
Sure.
And it's like, well, I wasn't going to anyway. So that's kind of a weird thing to say, but you can, that's the sense of it, right? Is it's one of one and I don't want it to be more than one because then it loses its value.
Yeah.
So if you can sense that value, then.
But I mean to the end consumer, the person who is exhibiting the taste, right? So let's think about it like this. Let's say that I'm your average consumer and I'm on Etsy and I'm surfing Etsy and I want to find a block print, something that looks like a block print, has the aesthetic of a block print anyway, right? I see a handmade wood block print on Etsy, and it's $100 I either don't know or don't care that this artist spent 25 hours carving this block and only printed 5 of them. I'm not going to spend a fucking $100. If I go over to somebody else's Etsy page and I see something with a similar aesthetic, a digital block print, if you will, and it's $20, I'm probably going to slam the buy button on that because to me, it gives me the vibe, the aesthetic that I'm looking for. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about myself. I just make my own fucking block print. But
Sure.
But
that is a point.
It's the trappings. It's the trappings of wealth. It's the trappings of craftsmanship without the real craftsmanship.
But there's You just dismantled my point with your last fucking clause there.
Sorry, dude.
Because I can't disagree with that.
Eric, this is exactly. Do you remember I posted on? You may not remember, but I posted a carving on the side of a jewelry coffin.
Oh, I remember.
And one I did by hand entirely, and one I did on the CNC. And I held them up. One was on top of the other.
Yeah.
And I asked the audience, would you pay more for the hand carved piece? And in the comments, 80% said, I would absolutely pay more. It's more meaningful. It's more special. You can see the hand of the maker, tiny imperfections. It feels different. It looks different. I would pay for it. But these people didn't fucking pay for it. Like the rubber,
that's what I was about to say.
It's easy to say that.
Okay, pony up.
Well, so it's also a question of like, well, two things. Number one, your audience is probably biased towards your work, and the majority of your work is hand done. So they are probably they're following you because they like that handmade touch, the majority of them. But the other thing is, if you say, would you pay more for X versus Y? And they go, of course I would pay more for the handmade thing. Yeah. And you go, okay, the CNC'd one is $400. And they go, okay, yeah, I would happily pay $500 for the hand carved one, right? Like multitudes, my guy, multitudes.
Yeah.
So I think some part of that is probably a lack of education,
which gets into the taste issue. You know, it's like, do you have to be educated to have taste? And like, is that an elitist idea to begin with? Right.
That just made me cringe a little bit.
Dude,
I know. It's like the lowbrow, highbrow, middlebrow kind of argument, you know? I'm thinking about...
Well, in fairness, I'm not highly educated, and I feel like I have decent taste.
You do. But you're visually educated. You might,
fair.
Which more and more people are becoming visually educated in our culture, right? Because of social media. But I think that part of Paul, part of your audience, like saying, yeah, I'm willing to pay more for the handmade thing. Yeah, there's a little bit of bias, but there's also the pendulum swinging as a reaction to our machine age, right?
Yes.
Like post-industrial revolution, we're seeing like, Art Deco, Beaux-Art movement, arts and crafts, right? All of these things in revolt to the Industrial Revolution, to the machine age. We again want to like have this sumptuous nature and these natural color palettes and everything to counteract the chrome and the black and the gray and, all that shit that my husband really loves. But bless his architect heart.
See, even if you are educated, maybe you don't have taste,
Well, that's
it's fine. I don't know him. I can make fun of him.
It's getting hot in here, y'all.
He's not going to sleep with me tonight. It's fine.
Look, well, he's not going to sleep with me either. So
it's getting hot in here, y'all.
He and I both are visually educated as far as taste goes, and both have like terminal degrees in different kinds of design, and we have completely different opinions about ornamentation and color and how those things interact with taste. I think that some people just react to the zeitgeist in a different way. Greg as an architect is like very much embracing not only the current moment, the machine moment, but also all of modernism, that has come before. Me, I'm like, fuck, I spend most of my day looking at a computer that has no dimension, has digital color that's being shined into my eyes by some little fucking pixels. I want to touch something that has actual texture. I want to carve wood. I want to see paint that has depth to it. I want to touch velvet, god damn it.
Yeah.
So is part of that the, like, let's liken this back to like different learning styles. Right. Some people are visual learners. Some people are physical learners. Some people just need like rote memorization, whatever the thing is. I know I'm very much a physical learner. And if I do a thing once, you can explain it to me all day long. I'll fucking forget it. If I do a thing once, I will remember it. Right. If my hands physically do it, I will remember it. So I wonder if part of that is like, your hands work in a certain way and you need to do the thing. And so you're drawn to that. And maybe his brain is wired to learn in a different way. And that kind of leads itself to two different philosophies over time, just because people's brains are wired differently. So is it a right or wrong? Or is it just like we have an education system right now that highly favors people who can sit in a chair and read a book and regurgitate information?
I would think Jack can do that. She just
I'm certainly not saying Jack that you can't do that.
I see what you're saying. I mean, part of it is the bias of architecture school, right? Like, I kind of wonder what would happen if somebody who is like a highly ornamented, somebody who makes highly ornamented furniture now was like, you know what, I want to go back to school to become an architect. How that would go. I think the bias of bias towards modernism in architecture school in general, and maybe, I don't know if Mary would say the same thing, but in the architecture industry in general, it is that way. So many architects have been churned out of architecture schools since the 1960s, 70s, 80s with this bias towards modernism.
But how much of the push to continue modernism in architecture is based solely on the fact of like, my clients are the ones who are going to pay my fucking bills and I just got to give them the thing that they want.
I mean, that is true to an extent, for sure.
Like they are running businesses, in fairness to them.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. Maybe you have a much deeper understanding of the world of architecture and how the world views architecture than I do, given you're married to an architect. But I imagine if 500 years from now, people just woke up, there's nobody left on the earth, but people just woke up and they looked around and they saw, the Sears Tower, the Empire State Building, and they saw a couple of Frank Gehry pieces. They'd be like, yeah, those ones are fucking tall squares, rectangles, cool. But like this one over here, look how fucking wild this is, right? That leans.
Absolutely.
And now Frank Gehry's working he's splitting the hairs between like modernism, but also highly ornamented buildings because they're fucking wild. But I feel like we're naturally drawn to that thing that's crazy.
It has an organic shape. It has an organic shape.
Sure, but it's not like brutalism, It's not like fucking obelisk.
Eric, you keep dancing around this point. You're basically saying, without saying it directly, humans prefer ornamentation. That's what I hear you say.
I think we do in the same way that we prefer like soft edges.
It's
like,
evolutionary.
I think it is.
And I think
I agree.
Part of the age we live in is fighting, like, because we came into the 20th century and we had this idea of we were reaching peak humanity, and like now we can transcend everything to the point where we are now dealing with the ramifications of understanding that we might not actually be able to control nature. For the last 100 years, we were promised that like hurricanes, not a big deal. We can build fucking levees. We can build walls. We can keep nature at bay. And now we're going, oh fuck, we can't do that. And I think similarly in the design world, in the art world, we had this idea of like ornamentation is old world. That's bullshit that's behind us. Now modernism, minimalism
is the new.
Yeah, and we're contending with the fact of like, I think it's just innate in us that we prefer ornamentation.
Look at how long it lasted. The ornamentation period was 2,000 years plus. The minimalism is 100 years plus. Come on.
Way longer than 2,000 years plus.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we've got 4,000-year-old Greek vases.
True.
Even older than that. Even older than that.
The Lion Man.
I mean, let's look at literally 12,000 BC, right? Let me take us way back in art history. Approximately 12,000 BC. There are the earliest pieces of ornamented art that were crafted instead of merely painted on a two-dimensional surface were knives. They were functional. They were knives for hunting, for skinning things, whatever. But here's where it gets really, really primal. And of course, it goes back to, who's going to get to have sex with who, like everything does, right? Whoever had the most beautiful knife, if it was made of this beautiful precious stone, if it was carved to have a better, more pleasing curve in the way it sat in your hand, that's the guy that got to bone whoever he wanted.
I love it.
Bottom line.
Biggest knife wins the day, baby.
No, not biggest. Not biggest. It's really all about how you use it.
So wait, go ahead, Eric.
Okay. Well, to your point, Jack, like on the last episode, I brought up the Lion Man, the statue. And like Paul, the point of that was, this was an object that was carved in their free time because they needed to express something, and presumably was used as an aid for storytelling. What is that statue if not an ornament to the story? They have a vehicle and they're taking this thing and they're using it as a visual aid. That's ornamentation.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's 40,000 years old.
All right. So question for both of you. If it's in our DNA to use ornamentation, why are we trying to deny it so hard, even today?
Because we think that we're higher order mental supreme human beings that have transcended our primal sexual physical forms for some kind of more sterile, more valuable, more intellectual life. Fuck that.
What an answer. Holy shit.
I mean, I agree with you 100%.
And Jack, what do you say to the people who are like, yeah, but I like the clean, minimal look. I just like it. Sorry.
I have this conversation with my husband all day, every day.
Okay.
But it's not wrong. It's not wrong. I think this gets into a conversation that could honestly almost be its own whole episode about the elements of art and the principles of design. Because to me, it's all about balance. And those don't just apply to 2D, art and design. It's also a 3D thing, right? So things that we find pleasing to the eye and to the brain subconsciously as humans, contrast is one of those things. If you have some overly ornamented, super, super maximalist thing, okay, imagine like, I'm gonna take myself back here and give myself away. Take yourself back to like your grandma's house with all of the fucking yellow and brown and orange doilies and all, and like pink couch cushions on top of.
I was thinking corduroy couches, but like same difference.
Exactly. And so I think that there can be too much, right?
Yeah.
There has to be some restraint. And even us, all three of us exercise some form of restraint to create a contrast between ornamentation and simplicity. Okay. Because when it's all ornamentation, it's no longer ornamentation.
As you were starting that point, I was visualizing the cathedrals that I visited when I was with Sarah this past summer. Paul, you were in Italy visiting a bunch of cathedrals, and you were, we were texting the whole time. You were overwhelmed. But the reason that they had such impact is because of their rarity. And to walk into that building from the streets now, old Italian streets, they have like, there's a weirdness to them. There's a quirkiness because they're so old, but high ornamentation, they are not, right? They're functional. They're handcrafted, but they're functional. Right. And then you walk into this cathedral and you're overwhelmed by how, like, the beauty, the ornamentation, the thought that goes into every detail, which is not
special
because it's abnormal. If you walked out of that building and everything looked like that, it'd be like social media. It's just fucking exhausting.
So Eric, I think that's because so few people were capable or had the resource to do ornamentation.
Yeah, no, 100%. But now we do.
Today we do.
Which is why we're tending toward minimalism, I think.
Because ornamentation en masse is fucking exhausting.
It's exhausting. It's just noise.
Yeah. And social media is doing that to us. And I think that part of the bias towards like neutral color palettes, minimalism in general, is in part due to social media, but for two different reasons. One, I think that we're so used to now being bombarded with overstimulating visual culture that minimalism actually feels really good to our brain. It creates some quiet space where actual ornamentation can feel special again instead of just exhausting and oversaturating. I think the other part of it, though, is that in popular culture, because it's what rich people are doing for the most part, minimalism and that kind of restraint is showing up on people's social media feeds left and right. Now, things started to change a little bit, I think, in like mid 2020, late 2020, because COVID specifically started shifting that. We started shifting. People didn't want like open houses anymore, open floor plan houses. People were staying at home, really making their life at home for the first time in a long time. And people wanted sumptuous colors that were comforting. They comfortable. And they didn't want open plan houses. They wanted private spaces again. And it's really, really hard to achieve ornamentation in a way that is not overwhelming when you don't have your own private space. I mean, think about it. If you have an open plan house and you want the kitchen to be yellow, but your partner wants the living room to be green, and you can see them both at the same time, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
I mean, didn't we all do the thing when we were teenagers of like trying to decorate our room?
Oh yeah.
And it's never about what the room was being decorated as. What mattered is it was whatever pissed your parents off.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Like it was the contrast to the rest of the house. And that could be done because it was in a small space. And you know as well as I know, if we as teenagers had the ability to decorate the entire house in that same manner, we would have done it, and then we would have immediately changed it because we would have been like, this is fucking
huge
chaos. This is ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think there has to be some balance, and we are so overstimulated so much of the time that coming to a visually quieter place is a really helpful reset for us. But also, I'm laughing at this current moment right now because the trend away from like calm and neutral and more, I don't want to call it maximalism because we're not there yet as a culture, but like you can first
it's
just the
trending
fact that
way, Eric.
But just the fact that even maximalism is a thing that we're talking about again is proof that we're headed back in that direction. But so much of that, I think, stems from people. This is going to sound real prickish, so forgive me ahead of time. But stems from people not having interesting things in their house to contrast the rest of their house.
Wait, can you say that one more time?
So I think a lot of the problem is that people don't have interesting things in their house to decorate the house with. And so they rely on the house itself as decoration. So if I walk into my house, I have a bunch of shit that I've made. I have shit that friends have made. I have boxes that Paul's made. I have paintings from other friends. I have my house is my gallery. This is where I keep the things that I make. And if the house itself was louder than it is, you would walk into my house and it would be exhausting. It would be like, what the fuck do I look at? But because it's kind of gray and beiges, and I'm still working through a lot of the rooms that I haven't painted over the last owner, which was just a fucking rental and is terrible, like periwinkle blue everywhere. But if it was louder than that, then it would... The pieces that I make, the pieces that my friends make that ornament the space wouldn't stand out as beautiful. They would stand out as busy, and you wouldn't know what to look at.
Right, there's Eric, a reason that the galleries, like art galleries' walls are white.
Right.
Yeah.
Eric, I have a point about the ornamentation in your house. And I think this comes back to something you were saying. And it's like, where do we go from here? When everything's available, you could go maximalist, ornamented, available for your life, your space. You could go minimalist, contemporary for your life and space, whatever. It's all available. Everything's on the table. So where do we go from here? And I feel like the answer was starting to come into focus, but we didn't like finish focusing it. And the start of the answer was you imbue your life with special pieces that are either one-offs or have meaning or were made by people, single people, because there's value in those objects. I hear that, but I sort of see you almost saying that.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that, but here's the reason I'm laughing at to myself and holding back is because another way to phrase what you just said is the way to find meaning in it is to live with less, but the objects that you have carry more weight
and intention.
So in a way, you are advocating for minimalism.
You're advocating for
have less shit, but the shit that you have matters more.
So basically, it's Marie Kondo. We're Marie Kondoing this conversation. Okay,
yeah, 100%.
Well, no, I not quite, Eric. Like I have objects that are made by people. I don't want factory. I don't want like something produced in an Indonesian factory. I don't want China made good. I want stuff made by the hands of a friend and someone I care about. Whether it's minimal or whether it's ornamented.
The object itself, not minimal or ornamented.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
You have you own a fewer number of objects because the objects that you own are of a higher value.
Or you might say they spark joy.
But we're at a place when excess is so common.
He's in the zone. He's gonna ignore our jokes right now.
I love Marie Kondo. I do. I love Marie Kondo. I do. I totally bought into that. I watched the documentary, and I would ask myself, "Does this fucking sweater spark joy?" It makes me look fat, so no. I totally, I'm into it. But I guess it's like for so long growing up in our particular eras, everything was so available. You could have a mug. You could have 50 mugs. You could have 100 mugs. I don't want 100 mugs. I want 10 made by 10 people I know.
But that's exactly what I'm saying, right? In a way, and this is maybe a stretch of the definition, but in a way that is minimalism. Like I own 4 coffee mugs in my house, rather than like going to fucking Crate and Barrel and buying the set of 8. And like sometimes people come over and I'm like, I'm out of cups, guys. Like I don't know what to fucking tell you. I'll wash one. But
every time I go get coffee, every single day, I look at that line of mugs. I have about 15 handmade mugs.
Yeah.
And each one was somewhere between $50 and $100. So I suppose I did put my money where my mouth was. And I look at those mugs and I think, which one of those am I feeling today? And it's like this little ritual, right? Like life is so is so tough, right? Like we have to do things we don't want to do. In fact, my neighbor's kid, the other day, he comes over, he's in college and he's like trying to find himself. And he's like, I just want to have fun 100% of the time.
Oh, buddy
so
boy.
Like,
I got bad news for you, homeboy.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I couldn't even say it. He goes, I just want to have a good time 100% of the time. And I was like, yeah, all of us fucking do. But
and you said 60% of the time it works every time.
I'm like,
wait, and you said he's 6?
No. Sorry, he's 18. He's 18. He just started college. It's his first year of college.
Oh, he's in college. Okay, that makes less sense. But now I understand.
Jack, he's struggling to find himself.
Okay, I see.
And he's struggling, and he's like, man, I just don't know what I want to do. And he's like, I just want to have fun 100% of the time. And I was like, my dude, I love you to pieces, but adulting is 95% or 90% doing shit you don't want to do, and maybe 10%. So these little rituals, sorry, I'm coming back to my main point. These little stupid rituals of like looking at a line of mugs and thinking about the people that made them and having like the warm and fuzzies because you know who they are. You picture them, their hands on the mug in the wet clay. Like that daily brings me joy. So I opt for that as opposed to the factory made mug.
So, all right. So let's bring it all the way back down because we're already at 53 minutes. Let's bring it all the way back to the beginning of this conversation and ask, like, I mean, I know you're doing all right in life, but I don't know that you're donating to museums. You might be without telling me.
Me? I'm not donating to museums.
I think you're doing just fine. In 100 years, let's say, fucking what was the town that got caught up in the volcano in Rome?
Oh, Pompeii.
Pompeii, thank you. Let's say Pompeii happens, and you've got 1,000 houses that get swallowed up in ash and preserved, and 1,000 years later, a historian finds it, and they come in and they look at everybody's got the same fucking mugs. They're all very practical. They're all very minimal. Even if they were handmade, they're all roughly the same. And then they come into your place. And they see these weird fucking mugs with leaf imprints in them with faces carved into them. Those are going to be the ones they pull out because they're different, because of their ornamentation. And so 1,000 years from now, the mass of people who are not more familiar with the history of objects are going to assume that we lived in an age where more people had ornamented objects because those are the things that get preserved.
Guys, are we like inventing a new movement right now? That's like craft minimalism or something?
Craft minimalism.
Well, Eric, you convinced me it's like live minimalist, but have maximalist. Almost like live with intention with a small number of objects, but those objects can be very flourished. And very
consequently,
maximal.
when you walk into your space, like those objects bring you joy because the space itself is not overwhelming. I think that's the contrast. But if you have, I guess to your point, Jack, like if you walk into a gallery and there was a lot of shit going on the walls and they were different colors, and then you have a line of 15 handmade mugs, people will be like, okay, they wouldn't hit the same way. They wouldn't strike the same chord.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Jack, I feel like we've ignored color to some extent. We've got so hung up on ornamentation and minimalism. Like, does color, I know we're running long on time, but does color parallel a lot of this conversation?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if we think about like color theory, I think that color is just another form of ornamentation, right? And it's either 2D or 3D depending on what you put it on, but nonetheless, it's part of ornamentation. When you walk into a room that's like an overwhelming cacophony of color, you don't really have a feeling. You don't get a feeling except maybe being kind of overwhelmed. But so let's just delve into just a second of color theory here. If you walk into a room that has a warm color palette, warm olive greens, warm rich Corinthian leather, mahogany cabinets, whatever, you feel a certain sense of coziness and like envelopment.
Talk
right?
dirty to me with the
Ooh.
She said.
Oh yes, rich Corinthian leather, polished mahogany.
Oh
absolutely. Anyway, I'll drop the link to my OnlyFans in the chat. But you get a feeling, right? It is this like sense of calm and connection and coziness and envelopment. On the other hand, when you walk into like a fucking CrossFit gym and everything is painted black or white, and then you see like these like blue and orange, lightning
Neon.
bolts up against a barbell on the wall, blue and orange, those are contrasting colors. They create a very, very high energy, high impact feeling. And so color is feeling. But when we are overwhelmed with too much color, with all of it at once, you don't get a feeling, you just get overwhelmed. So I think that as a woodworker, as any kind of craftsperson, as an artist, whether you're dealing with interiors, you have to be really intentional about your use of color, because if you're not, you're going to make somebody feel something that you don't necessarily want them to feel.
I guess
haven't we all done that in the past, both in woodworking and in relationships? I mean, that's just how,
I guess this leads us into our second segment.
It does, 100%. So, all right. So here's what I want to know. First of all, as you were saying that, what I was thinking of, and this object comes up fairly consistently on the show, but I was thinking of the Ponchette cabinet, because I put a white Osmo on that, a white hard wax oil finish, and it stripped it of all its color, right? It becomes kind of statuesque in the way that it's perceived.
It looked
and
like
I think
marble.
maybe
It looked like a marble statue.
And I think maybe that's why it's not all that interesting to me, because it lacks color. Like, it felt like I stripped its color away.
No, you stripped the color away, which made me appreciate the form and the shape more.
Yeah. I'm not going to disagree with that. I think the form is lovely, but there is something, because I do it so rarely where I manipulate color. Right. My safe zone is to use wood tones as color. And so there are a couple of rules that I have, right? Like it's one contrast. You only get one. If you go more than one, you're starting to get too maximalist for me. I also, this is less color, but it's kind of like, it's texture, so it's related. I very rarely mix open poured and closed poured woods, because I think they just like, they look very different. That's just a me thing. I see the face you're making, Paul. I'm just saying they look different, and so I don't do it all that often. But here's what I want to know, because I'm admittedly terrified of color, and I know only enough color theory to know that most wood tones, being warm, pair well with a blue tone to pair the warm
they do?
and the cool.
Do they?
I mean, it's
do?
usually like a walnut or an ash, and that's fine. You listen. Hey, we can have differing opinions, buddy.
Okay,
why you gotta attack my humanity?
No, keep going. I love you. Keep going.
As long as the blue is not part of a river table, I don't have too much trouble with that.
Keep going, Eric.
So I want to know, number one, if you could give me and us and our listeners some advice on how to apply color theory to woodworkers
and mistakes you've seen.
And I mean, what we could say, maybe sans river tables, because that feels a little too low hanging fruit.
We
but
could
you
just
could
go
shit
on all
them
night
a little
about
bit
that
if you want. So yeah, what mistakes you've seen woodworkers make using color theory, and that could be in wood tones or outside. But also like genuine practical advice on like how do we incorporate color into our work?
Yeah. This is called Color for Dummies, this segment. Go ahead, Jack.
Okay, so...
You don't got to call me a dummy so blatantly, bro.
I'm calling us dummies. This is basically, we're asking Jack to fucking tell all woodworkers what they're doing wrong with their use of color, Eric.
Okay, so here's what you first have to understand. We have to go back and acknowledge that color is just one kind of ornamentation, right? Mm-hmm. And I hope that everyone, leaves this episode and immediately goes and Googles elements of art and principles of design. Okay, so the elements of art are things like line, right? And then the principles of design are the principles that dictate how the elements of art are used.
Can I ask you a question just as one former art teacher to a real art teacher? Because I pretended to be an art teacher for a lot of years. The way I described it, maybe this is helpful for our audience, but I want you to tell me if you disagree with this.
Okay.
Is I always told people that the elements of art or the elements of design are the tools or that you're manipulating, and the principles are the raw materials that you're using the tools to manipulate.
I would flip that. I would say that the elements of art are like the building blocks of art. Those are like the raw materials, and then the principles of design are like how you apply those things. Okay. They're the tools that you use to manipulate them. So like elements of art would be like color. I mean, color is an element of art. Line, shape, form, value, like light and dark, space, whether you have, a lot of emptiness within or around something. Those are all elements of art. The principles of design are how you apply those things. And this is the part that really, really gets into what's important for woodworkers. Color is important for sure, but it's an element of art that you don't want to overwhelm with, because every element of art impacts how your piece is going to look. So balance, for instance, is one of the principles of design. And balance, I think, is one of the most important ones. If you put a metric fuck ton of color into a piece that you are working on, but it also has a cacophony of different kinds of form and different kinds of texture and different values of light and dark, that is going to be an overwhelming fucking mess. And I have seen it happen before. And I don't want to call anybody specific out, but I do just want to say that
it's fine. I'm right here.
I would never
do it.
I want to say in general, a lot of folks who are new to woodworking, and honestly new to any kind of craft in general, but especially to woodworking, they're trying so hard to put all the fancy things in one piece. And that's exactly where you go wrong. And that's not me being a minimalist. That's not what I'm saying. But you have to pick where you put your emphasis. And emphasis is another principle of design. So if you're going to lay on a lot of color, you need more simplicity of form. If you're going to have a lot of different value changes, like very light wood, whitewash pickling, ebony, all these things together, you need a super, super simple form and do not add any color. You have to pick your battles, so to speak, because you only want to focus, you want to put emphasis on one thing. So Does that make sense?
Yeah, Jack, can I make a comment about something I've been struggling with my own work with what you just said? I love ornamentation. I love it so much. I love carving. I love every bit of ornamentation. I just want to eat, breathe, and sleep it. And I look at my repertoire of things I make, and they're so clean and modern, minimal. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with me? What am I doing? I love this, and I make that. Why am I making that? And then I realized because I love figured woods. Like,
I was going to say, they're not unornamented.
No,
they're not. They're physically, the form is quite simple, but the figured woods are dazzling. And I just can't put on ornament on top of that because it's too much.
You don't need to. So one of the principles of design is pattern, right? And I would classify figured wood as a pattern in this particular case. With that beautiful emphasis on pattern, if you were to add a lot of color or you were to complicate the form, you would immediately overwhelm it. Even something like proportion can totally fuck a piece, right? Like, let's say you have a chunky ass piece of highly ornamented, I don't know, you're making a fucking dresser or something, right? If you do that, if you have this massive chunky ornamented piece and then you put it on some tiny little shitty little legs that you can barely see, well, that's gonna look squat as hell because the proportion is all wrong, right?
The irony is, I think that's the thing that most woodworkers struggle with is getting the proportion right.
Oh.
Yeah, because I think like we often limit our color palette. Right. And sometimes we ornament with figured woods, but so few people understand classical proportioning that it just looks funky. And so often we overly rely on kind of what we'll call industrial standards. Right. So everything's 3/4 of an inch. Every person at a table gets 26 inches for a place setting. So a table is X size. Right. Like these are the things that they are what they are. And if you don't know some of those industrial standards and you get it wrong, it doesn't matter what you do, it looks fucked. But also, if you over rely on those industrial standards, no matter what you do, it looks mass produced because you're beginning kind of your flow when you're trying to figure it out as a younger woodworker. You go, well, I'll just make what Crate and Barrel made, but I'll make it out of Purple Heart. And you go, well, it still looks fucking stupid.
I knew you were going to say Purple Heart.
Oh my God.
Well, Jack, because that's how we try to ornament it.
I get it. And imitation is not a bad place to start.
I'm not trying to knock them.
We have painting students copy the Mona Lisa, and shit like that to learn the strokes, right, so to speak. But here is what I would encourage for any woodworker at any level. Next time you start something, focus on emphasizing only one of the principles of design and only one of the elements of art. So if you are going to one, and by that I mean one of each. So like, let's say you want to use a figured wood. That's pattern. So that's one of the principles of design. So you get to pick one of the elements of art, not a bunch of them. So for instance, texture. So if you're going to be working with a figured wood, that's your principle of design. If you want to employ texture as your element of art, it might be like you're hand carving like a sort of scooped texture on the doors, but the top is completely smooth. You can't do more than one element of art and one principle of design without overwhelming people in general. That's what I think.
What a great starting point.
I agree with you 100%. I think that's fantastic advice. I just want to, can I add on to that by telling people as you become more comfortable manipulating the elements and principles of design, you will quickly realize that you're always manipulating multiple elements of design.
So true.
It's like, that's just how it goes. Every piece you ever make will have all of the principles in there. You just have to pick one to focus on. And there are times where you go like, okay, it's kind of like music in that, like, is it written in 3/4 or is it written in 6/8? Like, is it 6/8 or 3/4 with a swing? I don't know. We can debate that endlessly. So is your figured wood a rhythmic principle, or are you manipulating line because you're trying to pull that eye around a corner using a crotch? Whatever way you want to look at it, the point is you're focusing on one and manipulating that thing. So don't get confused of like, is it this or is it that? That's not the point.
Yeah, no, you're totally correct. Whether we like it or not, everything that we make is going to, in some way, contain all of the elements of art and all the principles of design. But it's about the principle of design known as emphasis as to what dictates whether a piece is good or not. Because if you try to put emphasis on too many of the elements of art and principles of design, it's gonna fucking suck. But if you pick one element of art and one principle of design to focus on while acknowledging you're gonna manipulate all of those whether you like it or not because they're all present, then you can start to make something really, really good. And not only good, but something that's actually yours. And I think that this is where a lot of woodworkers fall short. They're making things that look like what's popular, cough, cough, river tables. They're making things that, that look like something that they want to own for themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. But is it really yours? And until you understand how you prefer to manipulate the elements of art and principles of design in your woodwork, you're never going to make work that's actually yours.
So fucking good, Jack. Yes to all of that. I feel that, all of that. Yes.
I'm glad.
I just want to let folks know that if you're looking for visual aids, that I have both definitions of the elements and principles on my website and definitions with images of woodworking in there. They are, I don't know if Jack, you have a better place to download these. I've had these up here forever. For some reason on Squarespace, I couldn't just put it up there so that you could download it. You have to actually like put in your credit card information and then like buy the free thing, but you don't get charged for it. So if you go to my website, encurtis.com, under plans, you'll just see the definition of elements and principles of design, and then one with visuals as well.
Kick ass, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, to me, this is really right up there with like, do you know how to correctly and beautifully like master a mortise and tenon? I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, especially those fancy angled ones that you're thinking about doing in your class, Eric. but if you can fucking do mortise and tenon all day, but you cannot understand that you shouldn't overload people visually with texture and form and color and pattern. You know,
Jack, last question. If this is so important, and it is, all three of us agree, this is so fucking important. The balance of, I love this, elements of art and principles of design. Oh, why is this not in every episode? This is everything to finding your artistic voice, to differentiating your work, to making it visually appealing and beautiful. Like, this is everything. Why don't woodworkers talk more about this?
Honestly, I think it goes back to this lack of democratization of taste and this stupid fight between art and craft.
That's what I was thinking.
It's such bullshit. It's such bullshit. I mean, as somebody who went to art school and then went to art grad school and then taught in art school, but was a crafts person before that and during that and after that, I really lament schools that don't put an emphasis, and art schools that don't put an emphasis on excellent craftsmanship, on really mastering your craft, and a lot of them don't. By the same token, you probably will not go through a lot of woodworking programs, maybe any, even legendary ones,
not one,
and have someone sit down and say, look, you can make an angled mortise and tenon all day. You make an angled mortise and tenon, nobody's going to fucking see it or appreciate it if you have a cacophony of color and texture and proportion and line and form that is distracting people's eyes.
Actually, Jack, I think it's the opposite normally. There's not too much, there's too little. So much woodworking is boring as fuck. They haven't explored these avenues to find their creative voice, and it's just like repeating the same tired forms again because they enjoy the making more than the art.
Yeah. Well, I think that's definitely part of it. I think that's a huge part of the world that we reside in on social media and in the hobbyist world.
Is it because of function? Is it because woodworking is function?
Yes.
I think it comes back to your point. I think you nailed it exactly on the head, which is like, you go to an art school and you learn how to design, you learn the elements and principles of art, you learn how to compose, and there's never an emphasis placed on your technical skill to become a great painter because it's not valued. You're seen as a thinker. And then you go to a craft school and your job is to learn how to make a thing. And I want to give credit to my teacher, Alan Lewis, who was a really good furniture designer, and he was a brilliant teacher. And he does a really good job, at least when I had him, and presumably still now, of finding where people are at and then pushing them like 10% farther, like just outside their comfort zone. But I think the problem is, it's kind of, I'm just going to speak from the craft school perspective because that's the world I live in. I think it's a twofold problem. Number one, there aren't that many woodworkers who know how to articulate what they're doing in the terms that we just discussed, like the elements and principles of design. I think the people who are really fucking good at designing objects in the woodworking in the functional furniture space just kind of have the innate thing, you know, and they can't really describe how they do it. They just do it well. Like, Paul, I don't think you're dissimilar from this. You don't have a background education in design. And yet, like, the overwhelming majority of the things you make, you hit it so fucking close to like it is it's either out of the park or it hit the wall for a stand-up double, you know? But you can't tell me why the thing works usually. You're just like, it just works.
I look at it and I know.
And so I think the overwhelming majority of people who succeed in the furniture world, because we see ourselves as craftspeople and we're seen as a craft, have that, and they don't have the ability to articulate it in the way that Jack did.
Some of the best craftspeople and some of the best artists are also some of the shittiest teachers sometimes.
Well, that's also true.
Yeah, because they go from, in their mind, they go from point A to point C, and they never go through point B, and so they can't teach point B.
Because it's innate to what they're doing.
Exactly.
But I think the other problem with craft schools is the reality is people who will pay money to attend a craft school are more likely to see themselves as craftspeople or care about the building of the thing and care less about learning to design.
Yeah. And art, on the other hand, like I had an incredible sculpture professor in school, and I went to this like tiny little private college called Sewanee, the University of the South. Fucking incredible school. And this sculpture professor, Greg Pond, a brilliant thinker but also a brilliant sculptor, he told me something that cut me to the fucking bone when I was a sophomore. I mean, it shook me. I was sitting in the sculpture studio late one night, sketching out the umpteenth sketch of some like overly fucking intellectual exercise that I was planning to make, but I hadn't turned on a saw, I hadn't picked up the welder, I hadn't cast any plaster. And he walks in, it's like fucking 11 o'clock at night, and he just looks at me and he goes, "You know, the ideas are not the work." And then he just fucking walked off. And I was just like, my whole life is a sham. And I immediately set out to get very, very good at craft. But not a lot of my peers did. And it really, really shows.
Yeah. But we also live in an age where, in pop culture at least, and we're talking about modern art, the idea is the work. You know, like it's
in some cases,
listen,
yes.
Again, we can have a whole nother.
That's a whole other episode.
It's like fucking banana on a wall.
Sorry, Eric. Last question for you guys: is this right brain, left brain? The right brain being the creative, artistic side, and the left brain being the execution, analytical side. To
some extent, maybe
it's almost like craft is the analytical, execution, engineering piece, and the right is the design elements, art. What does it mean piece? And like you have to find people who are comfortable using both right and left.
The people
brain.
who do both, I think the people who do both have always been the best. I mean, like if you look at Da Vinci, right, legendary. Most people don't know that he was also like an extreme engineer, right? Like focused engineer. To a hyper. Yeah, exactly.
Invented the helicopter.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, and built entire sculptural theatrical sets and designed wings to help people fly.
And studied the human body and muscles.
Yeah,
and
all of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think I guess, Paul, the way that you phrased it, right brain, left brain, I don't disagree with. But that's looking at it black and white. And if we do anything in our current age that I agree with is recognizing that everything is a scale, right? Because we could say that it's like a Venn diagram, right? Where like, you know, and then there's a few people in the middle who kind of get it from both sides. Yeah. Versus I think there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, and maybe they only play with...
We're a spectrum of right brain, left brain,
of course.
But Eric, my day job, and for the last 20-something, 30 years of science, is with highly analytical, highly science-minded...
Sure. So you live in an extreme.
Like extremophiles.
Yeah.
I am the weird one in that world who loves art. I just fucking love it. Like, I can hang in that world. I'm not quite as lefty as they are. And like they're better than me at a lot of like super, super technical shit. But I relate more to people and I understand the feelings better and I see the beauty more. So like that whole right brain piece like comes into me. And I kind of see the two at play in both my work and now woodworking.
Maybe I do fall pretty close to the center of that sliding scale, but I
think you do.
I am of the opinion that science and art are not as far apart.
They don't have to be. They don't have to be.
No, I don't think they are. I think the artistic process and anybody who's good at their craft, whatever their fucking medium is a series of experiments.
Absolutely.
You go, I have an idea. I know what tools I have to execute the idea. I'm going to do the thing and see if it works. And the people who are really good and often successful at what they do look at the thing and they go, the result is not exactly what it should be. So I'll run another experiment and change 5% and see if something happens.
I would argue that that's an aptitude that you have. Sorry.
But let's also look at this from the science of learning design. I have to put on my silly learning design professional hat. Paul, I have to ask, like, the people that you work with, do any of them engage in tangible, manual, creative-based skills like you do?
A couple, not a lot.
The reason I ask is because there's a truth in learning design that if somebody tries to learn something through exposure, rote memorization, etc., it's going to take a minimum of 20 synaptic connections to be able to make that new idea stick, to make it a habit, to make it a skill that you can repeat
20 times of experiencing it.
Exactly. Okay. Minimum of 20. Whereas the average, if you can learn this thing through play, through some kind of experimentation, is 6. It's just 6.
Oh.
And I think that has a huge impact on how people who are analytical but also creative can learn to pick up things on both sides of the brain faster, because we can think of it as this experimental play and engage with it that way. Basically, fuck around and find out in a good way, you know?
Jack, that's number 4 for this episode, or 5. That was fucking
I think it's
brilliant.
5.
Oh, you guys,
it's true,
what
though.
A great conversation. Like, we're at an hour 20, and I just want to keep going.
We could keep doing it.
We've got 3 more episodes in here.
This is honestly so compelling to me. I fucking love this topic.
All right, you know what I want to know for everybody listening, who's an hour and 20 deep into this episode now, for everybody still listening, please let us know, whether on Patreon or Instagram, if you want us to do a full-on deep dive episode into the elements and principles of design, because I think there's real value there. I just don't know, like, what's the broad appeal? Like, we're going to have this conversation off air, of course. We got to figure out what the question is, but there's real value to that. I just don't want it to be like an hour and a half of us teaching.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, like, we got to have something to argue about.
Maybe we could come up with something that's like interactive that people can do as they're listening.
We could do a Patreon live.
Oh,
maybe it's a mailbag situation. Like, if people look at the elements and principles of design and like maybe send us visuals and we try to like figure out how to critique. Maybe it's a critique episode. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
That would be so
episode
fun.
Could be good.
Oh, but I hope nobody comes with soft feelings, though.
Oh, yeah, don't. You gotta developing thick skin at a critique is one of the most valuable things that you could have.
But also learning to be good at critique, which doesn't always mean being tough at critique, is also really important too.
Oh, that's 6.
Yeah,
that's 6.
All right. We gotta end this fucking episode at some point. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna dive into our ad read, which is once again from our Lord and Savior, WTB Woodworking, William T. Burkle. So, Jack, I want to ask you 3 questions about WTB Woodworking, and I want to see what you know. What you know about what they do, what they have, what their vibe is. So, here's the first question for you. WTB Woodworking is offering on the 2nd of April, which is probably after this comes out, they're offering something called the Fez Tool Experience. And I'm wondering what you think the Fez Tool Experience entails.
Ooh. Well, I mean, it sounds expensive and kind of sexy. I mean, can you give me the address? Like, I think I might swing by.
Trying to backdoor it?
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Hey, I don't know about the back door. I'll come in the front.
Only Fez.
Only Fez.
Hashtag only Fez. Oh my God.
Okay. But you're gonna have to tell me what you think goes on behind those closed doors in that windowless room.
I think in the closed door windowless room of the Fez Tool Experience, I get to play with all of the Fez Tool toys I want in a group setting, or is it private?
I mean, that's maybe up to you. I don't know.
I think I'm gonna get to touch every tool that I want to touch, and then probably take something home.
Oh my God.
Okay. All right. It is. I just want to put one asterisk on that and let you know that it does start at 9 a.m. So if you're in that vibe at 9 a.m., I fucking love what life you're living, buddy. 9-1. Okay, here's another question for you, and this might be directly related to the festival experience that you just described. What do you think a micro jig does?
Is it like when you do a tiny dance because you're so happy about your tool?
So after the festival experience, you're so elated that you do a micro jig.
Yeah, but just a micro one.
What if do you have like a tiny helper, like maybe a little? Oh, it's a finger dance.
It's just a little.
Well, it's micro.
Dance.
It's micro.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was picturing a micro friend that you had that like does the dance.
Oh, like a little leprechaun friend that. No, it's me. I'm doing the smallest possible jig that I can because I'm so jazzed.
I do like the idea of finger dances, though. That's a micro jig. You can just... I'm going to pitch micro jig on that now.
Absolutely.
Okay. And finally, our last question. William T. Burkle comes from the distinguished heritage of the Scandinavian Boykels. And I'm wondering, how do you think that the Scandinavian Boykels created their woodworking legacy? Because there's a long history, long family history.
That's a good question. I'm going to say it probably has something to do with Viking ships, right? Because, like, isn't Boikel, like, ancient Icelandic for, like, really big fucking ship with a dragon on the front?
Oh, I thought it was Icelandic for fish. But that's interesting.
Is it? They're in the same ocean. I mean, it's there.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe a fish-shaped vessel.
Yeah, absolutely, a fish-shaped vessel. And they that's the origin of the legacy, and they just took it from there.
That's what it is. William T. Teresa Burkle.
Well, I'm really excited to, like, get on this ship and check out these tools and
as well. You should
a little micro jig.
Do you think the festival experience happens? Is that what the Boikel is? It's on the Boikel.
Well, if it's not, I'm not going to be nearly as excited. I mean, I'll come. But I won't be as excited about it.
Bill, I'm sorry. I hope you still continue to sponsor everybody.
Thanks, Bill. Boy. See you soon.
Okay, thanks, Billy boy. Well, I'm going to put the pause button on that shit. That was fantastic. Thank you, Jack, for answering our questions. My favorite part is that Eric asks you what these things are and never gives any other answers about what they actually are. He doesn't even dignify an answer.
What it actually is less important.
I mean, but I do want to know. I mean,
we'll talk about that in the after show. Thank you all so much for joining this episode. This has been one of the most thinking, profound. I have enjoyed this topic more than many in a long time. I love this fucking topic. I hope you did too. I hope you think about the use of elements of color and elements of art and principles of design in your work and think about balancing them. I hope you think about the use of ornamentation or minimalism as it suits you and why, and it sort of makes you think more about it. And I guess at a 10,000 foot view, I guess I'm hoping to say that I hope this conversation affected your perspective on your future work. Thank you, Jack, so much. You're awesome as always.
Jack.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Champion.
And we'll see you all in the after show. If you want the video feed to look at our, Eric's got a beautiful face. Jack's beautiful face. I'm, mediocre at best. But if you want the video feed,
you're a bear. Stop lying.
We're all good looking. Come on.
You subscribe to our Patreon, and that'll also give you the after show. We'll see you there, everyone.
Appreciate you, friends. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.